to actually change the dynamic so that we help kids succeed even in these tough budgetary environments.
So we haven't heard from this side of the room at all.
over here.
We've just got a few minutes left. All the way over here.
Hi. In the interest of alleviating our moderator's frustration, I'd like to ask a question about seniority in LIFO, and but what
I didn't know that was on the panel.
Well, looking anyway, I don't want to comment. The question I'd like, the way I'd like it to be, the participants to address this is not to talk, obviously, not to talk at each other, but collaboratively, how would you approach the issue with the superintendents, with teachers, and Randy with the superintendents, in order to come to some kind of a logical solution to this? Because obviously there are arguments on both sides, and I'm just wondering how you would approach this.
So let me actually frame that in the context germane directly to the panel, which is that I believe both of the contract agreements that were just made in New Haven and Baltimore don't directly address this issue. Or maybe yours does, Andres. Okay. In New Haven, there is obviously a process for expediting dismissal of teachers that are deemed to be incompetent, but the outcome of the teacher evaluation process is not connected to the rules around layoffs, and that was simply not something that was part of the negotiation. So there really is a question now, you know, in districts that are facing layoffs, and in places like New Haven or Baltimore that are starting to develop a teacher evaluation system, can these districts move the ball forward, or is the conversation simply happening at a state level around objective factors and other issues?
So the real issue here is the issue of evaluation. That's the real issue. And so 2 years ago, the conversation all across America was that 99.9% of teachers get evaluated satisfactorily. So there must be something wrong with the evaluation systems. Now, the evaluation systems in the main are basically management-dominated, management-driven. They're performance systems. So some of us basically said, we have to actually change the evaluation system so that it is connected to what teachers should be able to do and how, and then what kids should be able to know. And so there are now hundreds, as this gentleman said earlier, there are now hundreds of districts that are now working on those kinds of things. But underlying this question is this. If 1 to 2 years ago, we didn't know who was a good teacher because the evaluation systems were broken, how is it that all of a sudden we know how to objectively, in a time of layoff, evaluate teachers? And so the problem, the dilemma is, in the absence of a really better evaluation system in most places, if you do not use the systems that are in place right now, what we will do is go back to the cronyism and the patronage and essentially the who likes who better, which is what happened in Washington, D.C. when they have the absence of seniority as the basis of layoff.
So we have 1 minute remaining. Andres, do you want to get in on this?
Just very quickly, I think that this is a necessary conversation that is ahead of the technical capacity and the actual implementation on the part of districts, because in many places, as an example, until 2 years ago, there wasn't a single student ID in the state of Maryland. Therefore, I mean, that creates extraordinary challenges around tracking growth over time, around value added. Without those elements, then how do you meaningfully engage in a conversation about the quality of teachers? When I entered the district in the previous year, only 57% of teachers have been evaluated. It was a huge grievance for the union because they needed the evaluation in order to renew their certification. Teachers did. So part of the conversation is about the actionable item on the part of principals in districts. Before a teacher gets tenure, all the cards are in the hands of a district. And yet, there is an ongoing conversation about tenure teachers that are no good. Well, who was responsible for giving those teachers tenure to begin with? So it's a complex conversation that unfortunately rubs against the fact that many districts are going to need to reduce their workforce, and nobody wants to get rid of young teachers who might be really, really good. But it's complex, and quite often it's not, the rhetoric is not complex. And I'm gonna end this by saying that I'm not entirely consistent in this conversation. I just testified in the General Assembly in Maryland for, effectiveness as a rationale for laying off teachers, because I don't want to lay off teachers that might be effective. I want to work at getting to that piece. But I know that we're not doing it well, and unless we do it well, then where do we get being on a moral high horse around this issue? So
Other
that's the
objective measures
complexity.
of teacher effectiveness in the meantime. But, okay, quick last word.
Let me say one thing. We're talking about teachers, but in my opinion, this is not just teachers we're talking about. It's principals and central office staff. And I wish I could say not superintendents, but superintendents as well. I think we need to improve that process for the whole gamut.
So I want to thank the panel for a thoughtful discussion, and for the audience for some great questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex, Andres, Reggie, and Randy. My name is Jamila Amarshi, and I want to thank you all for attending and adding your enthusiasm and insights to the ongoing conversation around education reform. We hope that you will enjoy your final 2 panel sessions for the day, and invite you to join us afterwards for a post-conference reception upstairs on the 19th floor, sponsored by Uncommon Schools and Harlem Village Academies. Thank you.